afternoon. How's everybody's day going? Thumbs up, thumbs down? Good, we've got more thumbs up than thumbs down, that's great. So thank you ever so much for coming to this session. So this session is based on simple social media lighting. So what I basically want to do is talk to you about why we would use lighting and certain elements of audio in our social media content, why it's so important in terms of delivering the message and the clarity of the message that you deliver. And it's going to be very simple. So we're going to go through a PowerPoint presentation, and then once I've gone through that presentation, I'm going to show you what the setup actually looks like. So you guys will be able to see what the camera is showing, and we'll go through the process of doing 1 light setup, 2 light setup, 3 light setup, and you can see the impact that each of those lights has on the overall production quality. In terms of the audio, I can't really give you an audio representation because of the way we laid out, but what I can do is describe the difference between using a lav mic and a shotgun mic and the difference that will have in terms of the production that you create. So I'm going to press on and talk to you about social media. We'll also talk about the different types of lights. So influencers tend to use a certain variety of light, and we'll talk to you about why they use those and whatnot. So a little bit about myself. I'm a freelance photographer. I mainly specialise in dance, music and portraiture. And over the years, as my profile started to build, I sort of took my work to YouTube. And as part of going to YouTube and trying to build my profile, I went through an absolute trial and error period of trying to get my production value right. And the reason being is, if your production value isn't right, what effectively happens is no one wants to listen to your message. So if the audio is bad, people switch off. If the video is bad, people switch off. If the lighting's poor, they don't want to listen to your message. So regardless of the value of the content that you have, if the production value is poor, people won't engage with it. So I started off, a lot of my videos have really low hit counts just because the quality of the videos are poor. People just switch off, and the quality overall on social media platforms is getting better and better. And what I hope to do from this workshop is give you some little pointers to be able to improve the production value of your content so you can get more people engaging and listening to the message that you're trying to deliver. So a little bit about my YouTube channel. I've literally just hit 1,000 views, which is 100,000 views, which is pretty cool. And you can see that that's kind of the production value I want to go for. That's the clean light that I want to shoot, so people can see the expressions I give as I'm going through talking, and try to deliver sort of a very realistic pitch in terms of the message that I'm trying to deliver. So talking about getting the message out there, there's a huge array of social media influencers that use the likes of YouTube, Instagram, Facebook to pitch their message to audiences, and all of those people have to have a good level of production to be able to get the message across. Because as I said to you, without the right level of production, people just switch off. You need to make sure the audio is correct. If none of you guys at the back could hear me now, I guarantee the whole back row would slowly just disappear into the show, and they wouldn't engage. If the lighting wasn't good, you couldn't see the expressions that I was giving during the talk, you'd also be disengaged with the purpose and the meaning of what I'm trying to say. So getting the message out there is crucial, but having the production value in doing that is also essential. So let's talk about message quality. So poor quality, weak message. It's really as simple as that. Then we have good quality, strong message. People will stay on your channel longer or on your social media platform for a longer period of time if the production level is good. Now, you worry that the kit you need to be able to produce good level content is going to be huge. You're going to need to invest thousands of pounds to be able to produce good lighting and good audio, and that's not actually the case. You can produce relatively good results with minimal spend or no spend at all. So I'm going to go through and talk to you about the different types of setups that we would use in terms of video production. So I'll go through each of these one by one, and then we'll finish on the sound one. And the reason I'll finish on the sound is because I can't actually demo it, but I can talk to you about the differences between using a lav mic or using a shotgun mic. So if I could ask Sarah to come up now, that would be amazing, thank you. And if we can switch to the view of the camera, that would be fantastic. So cool, so you can see that we've got the camera set up at the moment. Now, let me just make a few slight adjustments. I would say about there. Now, if Sarah was on social media and she was trying to deliver a message, if you saw this at the quality of the video, would you continue listening or would you switch off? Continue listening or go? You'd go elsewhere, yeah, it's poor quality. So what we want to be able to do with our talking heads pieces is we want to be able to do a couple of things. So want to be able to separate the subject from the background. That is going to allow you to be in focus throughout the whole, the whole topic that you're covering. If you start to blend and merge between the background, people become distracted, and you want the attention to be, really exclusively on the person that's pitching. So in order to do that, what we'd want to do is we'd want to use what is known as a kicker light. So a kicker light is effectively separating our subject from the background. That gives us a level of depth. When we're shooting video and when we're shooting stills, there's two ways we can create depth. We can create depth with the lens. If your lens has the ability to shoot at 1.4, 2.8, 3.5, the lower down you go or higher up in that number you go, the more separation you'll have, the more you'll separate the subject from the background. Because in video we want to keep as much in focus as possible so the focusing isn't continually switching, we want to use the light to create that separation. So what I'm going to do is very simply, using this little chap here, which is a Lux Pan 23, so it's a portable LED light, and it's got a battery powered in it. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to set this up, and this is the great thing with using LEDs. You guys can see the results we get as we're going through that process. So let me just get Sarah in focus. Now what I'm effectively doing is trying to separate the head from the background. Now with hair, if you look at Sarah's hair colour, the tonality of it, if I throw an orange light on it, it's not that flattering. Hair looks very healthy when there's a natural shimmer to it, so I prefer to shine a very white, pure light on top of it, which will create that shimmer, which will help separate Sarah from the background. So you can see there, we've got one light set up, and there we go. We can also, if we wanted to, if we only have one light available, we can bring this to the front, and we can shoot here. Now, due to the sort of size of the LED, we're quite limited to power, so if we wanted to improve that, we'd have to up the ISO rating to be able to sort of capture the light that's available. So that's a very simple one light setup. This would cost you £100 to go about doing it if you were doing simple headpieces. Now if you want to take this a little bit further and improve the production value, let's just drop that back down. So we drop down to 500, 400. What I'm going to do is use this to separate Sarah from the background. Now, nod of heads. Does this separate Sarah? Can you see a kicker on the hair? Have you got that? Yay, nay? Good, okay, because I can't actually see from here, so I have to keep coming forward. So then what we want from here, once we've created that separation, we want a key light. So this is going to be our key light, and this is going to have the most drastic impact in terms of the production value we create. So as soon as we turn this on, you'll see that this will be very well exposed, and you'll start to see the separation and the key light falling on. I would always recommend, if you have your kicker this side, put your key light this side, because what will happen is this is always going to be a stronger light, okay? And if they're sat parallel to each other, this is going to have an impact on that power, and it's going to stop that separation. So having them sort of opposite each other is great. So as I pull this up, just a smidgen, and drop that in there. Straight away you see a huge difference. That has the most amount of impact in terms of the production value that we're creating. Again, because it's bi-colour, Sarah's skin tone, that's not very flattering, so we want to try and get as accurate as possible. So from here, what we will do is we'll adjust the colour. That's too flat, so we're set about here. I've got the colour right. I've created kind of this Rembrandt look. You've got a little triangle underneath the eye, so there's a bit of shade. It creates depth and excitement. If you wanted to lose that factor, we just bring this more centrally, and you can see we get rid of that shadow. Now, this is a look that a lot of social media influencers will use. It's very flat, it's very soft, it's very, very flattering, especially if you're doing makeup, you're doing beauty, fashion. This is a very simple, easy light to use. A light that you'll actually see a lot being used is what's called a ring light. So what I'm going to do is just going to go set the ring light up and show you how that looks. So you might see a lot of social media influencers using ring lights, and what they do is they create a circular field of light with a nice pocket in the middle, which means you always get this really striking catch light in the eyes, which creates a bit of a glisten. But this is very simple and easy to use to create good quality. So again, put that down. Now with this light in particular, what you can do is just like so. If you just move your foot for us there, spot on, just drop that down. Of course there's a level of adjusting, so I would do that like that. We're kind of marginally there, we'll do it for the demonstration. Throw this on, I'm going to zoom through slightly, turn up my power, and you see we have a very flattering light. So for makeup and things like that, again, if you wanted a little bit more, I'll just ramp up the ISO. You can see the catch light in Sarah's eyes, so it's a very simple light to use. So if you're producing social media content where it's fashion, beauty, anything along those lines, you can use a ring light as 1-point light to produce good quality. So if I turn off this kicker light, you still see it's still a very flattering light. If Sarah moved closer to the ring light, if you just lean forward for us please, right here. Yeah, you can see for makeup and things like that, it's very flattering, you get a lot of detail in there. So say for instance you're doing a makeup blog and you wanted to do your eyelashes or your makeup, that's going to give you a very easy light to do so. So it's very easy to use as a social media model to lean back. Perfect. So that's using a 2-point light setup. Of course we can use one and we've already demonstrated it. But say for instance we wanted to create a little bit more, sort of a little bit more dynamic, add some more colour and some more vibrance to what we're filming. What we can do beyond there is add a third light. Now what I tend to do with the third light is have one that has an RGB function. So what that's going to give me is an array of colours that I can use to create different colour casts. So bear with me 2 seconds, switch that back on. Get back in focus. Cool. In terms of that, are you happy with that in terms of production? Looks good, works, very simple, great. We've got a bit of shadow so we get some depth. We've got that kicker, shimmer on the hair. Looks great, really simple. So if Sarah was doing a piece to camera, you can see every expression on her face. You know, when she starts to get excited about something, when she starts to try to labour a point, you can see that emotion in her face. And that's what we want when we're trying to influence an audience to get our message across. So that's crucial. But then if we wanted to add colour, so we could use something like this. So this is an RGB tube. What I'm going to do from here is change the colour. This is going to cycle through, actually let me just choose one, pop that in there. So this tube is pretty cool, it's one of my favourite tools at the moment. This just won Photography News of the Year, Best Continuous Light, and it's beat a range of amazing products, and it come away as the best light, and I use it a lot in photo and in video production. What this basically does for us is gives us the ability to add colours, so you may not see because, so if I get you to turn your head slightly this way, so if you face me, that's perfect, and then look forward, yeah, great. And if we see, and then if you look in that direction for us, the more surface area of Sarah's hair that I give available, the more that light, can you see that? I can't see it. Oh, you can see it, okay, great. So yeah, what this is basically going to do is just create a bit of colour. Now, where that comes into play with social media is, say for instance you have a certain brand colour that you use, like a certain pink or a red or a blue, and you want to continually portray that theme so there's a consistency in the message you deliver, you dial in that code and you continue to produce. So people get very familiar with the production level that you use, the colours you use, and they tend to associate that with you and your brand. Now, the next part from there is talking about sound, and this is the part I can't really demonstrate, but I can give you some examples. So, in terms of creating good audio on your social media content, there's 2 ways. You can use what's called a lav mic, or you can use a shotgun mic. Shotguns tend to be the most affordable, and you get what's called a dead cat that sits on the front, and this is designed to break up the wind noise that you tend to get when you pick up audio. Now, the only problem with this is, say for instance we were filming in this environment here, if I place the shotgun at the front of that audience, it's going to capture all of the noise between the point of, like this point and Sarah, so all of the ambience is captured. So in this environment, it won't lead to a good level of production. If we was at home in our studio and it was an enclosed room and it was just this distance from here with no ambient noise in between this space, a shotgun is a very good solution to make sure the accuracy of your audio is there. Because you've taken the efforts to make sure the lighting is correct, you also want to take the effort to make sure the audio is just as good. Now, in a situation such as this, if we wanted to make sure we had really good audio content, the way to go about doing it would be using a lav mic. Exactly the same as this mic, but the gap between where the audio is created and where the audio is received is a lot smaller. So it gets rid of all that ambience. You can hear here today, there's a huge amount of ambient noise and pollution. So this is closer to where the noise is being collected, therefore you'll get rid of that. So in a scenario such as this, a lav mic is the best solution. And that's just basically, making sure that your production value in terms of the lighting you use is good, but you also want to make sure you back it up with the audio. I think it was George Lucas once said, like, if you're into movies, he's like, the other 50% of the experience is the sound. It's crucially important that you get that part of it, right? And that kind of brings us to an end of this session in how to use single, 2 and 3-point light setups. We've got a bit of time for questions, so if there are any questions, feel free to chuck them my way before we finish. Thank you all for staying, I really appreciate that. Hey, one clap.